This is going to be a wealth of information, so if you see something that you need more clarification on or greater details, there's plenty of people here that you'll get to know throughout the evening that are here to answer your questions. And if you know someone who needs this information who is not here tonight, because you're here, you're going to be the experts, but for the other people, there's going to be information that you can pass on to them after this program. So I just want to say thank you all for coming, and this is one of the services that the clerk's office does a wonderful job on getting out into the community, making sure you know all the resources that the county can provide and that are free for you to take advantage of. And like I always say, knowledge is power, so you guys are empowered to be here. So thank you so much again, and I'm going to kick it off to Robin Staggers, and she is the person who puts all these programs together from the clerk's office. Oh, I also want to thank, I wanted to also thank Mayor Strauss, who is from the village of Palos Heights, and he could not be here yet. I think he might be coming, but the mayor's office and all of his staff, thank you so much for helping us put this together. And I also want to introduce Tanzim Abur, and she is from Hyatt Magazine, and Hyatt Magazine is also helping us promote this event and put the information out into the community through the magazine, which is a really great resource as well. I don't think we have any other elected officials here tonight. No? So, oh, that's right. Tanzim is also an elected official. Forgot that part. She's on the, she is a trustee in the Palos Heights, Palos Township trustee. So thank you again. You have dual role, and thank you for putting this information out amongst all of your social media platforms and getting it into every community so we can all be well informed. So with that, I know Clerk Yarbrough is not here right now, but her staff is here doing a wonderful job, and so I want to introduce Robin Staggers here, who's the assistant to the clerk. She is the community affairs liaison, and she goes throughout all of Cook County promoting these programs, putting all of those resources in the back as well for you to take advantage of. I see people have already taken some of that information, but we'll be here afterwards to explain more of that information if you need it as well. Thanks again.
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? This is kind of loud, isn't it? First of all, I want to bring you greetings on behalf of Cook County Clerk Karen A. Yarbrough. She is very, very passionate about what we're doing out here in the community. We bring these programs throughout the county so that we can educate you guys on options that you have outside of having a will, a trust, legal fees, probate, and we make sure that we provide the information, but it's left up to you to use it, right? So we can give you the information, but we can't make you take advantage of it. We're going to show you a video clip with regard to property after death and property fraud. We have staff in the back that will assist you at the end of the presentation. We have staff attorneys online, and we have a staff attorney here with us, Jim Gleffy. And then online we have Kang Trin and one of our community partners, Slavin Illick from Illick Law. Now, before we get started with the presentation, let me tell you guys, we are not attorneys at the clerk's office. So we are not allowed by law to answer any legal questions. That's why we have attorney partners, and we have our staff attorneys that can guide you. Well, they can't guide you through, but they can refer you to an attorney that can guide you through completing the forms, right?
Just to make it clear, I'm an attorney, but I can't provide legal advice as an employee of the Cook County Clerk's office. I can provide information, though. And I'm going to be working with our online partners to make sure we answer all of the questions that you have for us here today.
Okay. Now, when you came in, you were given index cards, a pen, and a couple of forms, right? So anybody here that does not have the index cards or an ink pen? Because at the end of the presentation, we're going to open it up for questions and answers. And we will collect your questions that you jot down on these cards, and the attorneys will address all of those questions. Okay? You guys are not responding. Okay? Now, I'm going to do a couple of housekeeping items. Please silence your cell phones so that it does not interfere, any ringing does not interfere with the flow of the presentation. If you have to go to the bathrooms are down the hall, out the door you came in, and to your left. Men's on the right and women's on the left. Okay? Okay. All right, so we're going to get started with our presentation.
Hello and welcome. I'm Karen Yarbrough, your Cook County Clerk. Thank you for joining us for this presentation on property fraud and managing your property after death. The Cook County Clerk's Office is one of the largest consolidated clerk's offices in the entire nation. In addition to functioning as the chief election authority for suburban Cook County, we maintain birth, marriage, and death records, and we assist property owners in redeeming delinquent taxes. We also have a recording operations division that records and stores land records and other official documents, which includes deeds, transfer on death instruments, and real estate documents. Now, nobody wants to talk about death or end-of-life planning, but it's a critical issue when it comes to managing your assets to protect your family and your loved ones. And we all need to be aware of the threat of property fraud and how we can guard against this type of financial crime. At the Cook County Clerk's Office, we are here to serve. And we hope that this information you received today will be helpful on these important issues that impact all of our daily lives. Now, I'd like to introduce you to my trusty assistant who will guide us through this presentation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin our discussion, we want to let you know that we will have volunteer attorneys available at the end of the presentation who can answer your questions about the topics we will be covering. If you are joining our program via Zoom and have questions that come up during the presentation, simply type your question in the Q&A section through your Zoom link and the attorneys will respond accordingly. Now, let's begin our discussion by talking about property fraud, which can also be known as deed fraud. So, what exactly is property fraud? Property fraud is the fraudulent and illegal recording of a document against your home's property records. We call it paper terrorism, and it's a very real problem and potential risk for all property owners. How can this happen? Almost every state has an open and public recording system, meaning that you cannot freeze your chain of title like you can your credit report. Plus, county recorders are not authorized by law to validate legal claims made in documents. Property fraud can involve the recording or filing of false or forged transfers of ownership, quitclaim deeds, or the filing of a bogus lien to steal property or harass an unsuspecting property owner. Even if your home is paid off, that does not stop someone from filing a new deed on top of it without the property owner's knowledge. Let's look at this NBC5 investigative report that takes a close look at how property fraud can occur.
By law, it is a line anyone can stand in and a fee anyone can pay. $40 is all it takes to get a deed or other document officially recorded in Cook County. A simple perk of open government openly abused by serious scammers.
I think they call them, financial parasites.
She was new to her office as recorder of deeds when Karen Yarbrough says she first spotted the trouble.
To steal a home, all you have to do is doctor some paperwork up and Photoshop it, bring it to the recorder's office, record it, voila, you own a home.
Con artists exploiting a system that relies on the honesty of those who use it, recording forged documents in order to steal a home outright. Sound far-fetched?
This is a kind of crime that I never imagined that could happen.
It did to Chicago Treasurer Stephanie Neely until it happened to her.
I get this call, I'm like,
What do you mean someone has changed the name on my deed? What do you mean? How do they do that?
In her case, a stranger recorded a fraudulent deed, waited until she was at work, and then changed the lock.
They want to physically be in your house, because once they're there, it's very difficult to get them out.
Precisely what happened to this Chicago woman.
This individual had paperwork that was Xerox that showed the deed was in his name.
She asked us to conceal her identity because
you're in constant fear that they will try something next, because believe it or not, they did come back 3 days later.
One man connected to her case was arrested and convicted. As the recorder's office continued to field fake documents,
I decided that I couldn't sit idly by and watch this happen.
Yarborough brought in this man.
They believe that the government created artificial duplicates of all of us.
An expert on sovereign citizens, the extreme anti-government movement often behind this crime.
They believe they can completely ignore our government and do whatever they want to do with impunity.
Pitkavich calls it paper terrorism and teaches the red flags, like the punctuation sovereigns add in the middle of names, the refusal to use mainstream addresses or zip codes, and how they employ lengthy, arcane terms. The flurry of documents they file may be fake, but their threat is real.
They're bullies. They're brazen. They think that nothing can touch them.
A lot of times they'll come in and overwhelm our frontline staff. You know, it may be 20 of them will come in.
Yarborough has a catchy comparison she uses to get a non-believer's attention. In Illinois, it is easier to steal a home than it is to steal a car.
It's fraud and, you know, they're taking people's homes.
So there is now a simple way for some homeowners to protect themselves, the free property fraud alert system. You load your property index number, then you get an alert if any document is recorded in connection with your property. Counties across the country are now turning to this kind of system as these cases of mortgage and property fraud continue to grow. Lisa Parker, NBC5, investigates.
To combat this problem, Clerk Yarborough created a property fraud unit with investigators and caseworkers who respond to and investigate any complaints of property fraud. The clerk's office also offers a free property fraud alert that will provide a telephone call or email to the property owner anytime a document is recorded against their property or the property of a loved one. There are 3 easy ways to sign up for the clerk's free property fraud alert. You may sign up in person at the clerk's office, you can sign up online, or you can sign up with a telephone call. Once registered, if you receive an alert or have a reason to be concerned about property fraud, you can contact the clerk's property fraud unit and our staff can help research the problem and coordinate a response. Call 312-603-4000 or visit our website at cookcountyclerk.com/property fraud. On a related note, while we're on the topic of your chain of title and fraud, property owners often need to obtain an official copy of their property deed when purchasing a home or for tax purposes. You should be aware there is a predatory practice aimed at homeowners in which companies offer a copy of your property's deed at a large markup price, sometimes exceeding $200. The clerk's office wants to remind you that we offer the same service starting at just $6. So there's no reason to pay exorbitant prices to gain access to these essential documents. Now, let's move on to the second part of our program, which is making plans to manage your property and assets in the event of your death. As Clerk Yarborough noted, no one wants to talk about death or end-of-life planning, but it's critical to manage your assets to protect your family and loved ones. Having a sound end-of-life plan is one of the greatest gifts that you can provide to your children and family members. Consider this. What do you think these 3 legendary individuals have in common? Prince, Aretha Franklin,
87 years ago, our fathers,
and Abraham Lincoln. Actually, they have something very unfortunate in common. They failed to make plans for their assets upon their death. No will, no trust, and no plan. Now, Let's consider someone who thought he had it right. Music legend James Brown, the godfather of soul. When he passed away in 2006, Brown's estate was worth an estimated $90 million. When he died, Brown left behind a plan for most of his estate to pay for scholarships for children in need in South Carolina, the state where he was born. But that will was challenged by family members after his death, resulting in more than 12 lawsuits. It took more than a decade of litigation before Mr. Brown's assets were designated as he had intended. So how do you get it right when it comes to your property after death? The best advice is to consult an attorney or estate planning professional to provide you with advice for your specific circumstances. But you should also know that under Illinois law, you can transfer your home, your car, or your bank account to a loved one without a will or a trust, and without having to pay any fees or court costs. Here are the details on how to transfer your property. First, a transfer on death instrument. The clerk's office has a free document on our website known as a transfer on death instrument. We call it a TODI. You can also obtain this document at no cost from any attorney or legal aid organization. The form should be completed and notarized and then recorded at the clerk's office in our Recording Operations Division. The transfer on death instrument will then be recorded on your property's chain of title, and, upon your death, the person designated to receive your property can do so after completing the required forms. Please note that the clerk's office cannot assist you in the preparation of a transfer on death instrument or any legal document. We do not provide legal advice to customers. Next, let's discuss a payable on death instrument. You can transfer the funds from your local bank account in a similar way. Utilizing a tool known as payable on death instrument, a person can transfer assets in a bank account to the beneficiary of their choosing after death. A payable on death instrument can be obtained and used at most financial institutions for checking and savings accounts, as well as certificates of deposits, CDs, money markets, and savings bonds. Even if you have completed a payable on death instrument, the account holder has full control of their funds in the account until the time of their death. When the account holder passes, the beneficiary can claim specified assets directly from the financial institution without having to wait for probate court proceedings. Finally, let's discuss a beneficiary affidavit. There is also a mechanism to transfer your car to a designated beneficiary. A vehicle owner may change, add, or remove a beneficiary on the title of their car by completing a free beneficiary affidavit through the Illinois Secretary of State's office. To obtain this beneficiary affidavit, go to the Illinois Secretary of State website at www.ilsos.gov. Keep in mind that if money is still owed on your home or vehicle at the time of your death, your beneficiary will be responsible for the mortgage and payments moving forward. On behalf of Clerk Karen Yarborough, we hope that you have found this presentation useful. The clerk's office is your first line of defense against property fraud, so we hope that you will take this opportunity to sign up for our free property fraud alert if you have not already done so. Managing your property and your assets in the event of your death is also critical to protecting your family and your assets, and to ensure that your wishes are carried out after your death. A copy of this presentation is available on the clerk's website if you would like to review it again or share with a friend or family member. Please visit www.cookcountyclerk.com/PAD resources to review the presentation. Now let's ask the volunteer attorneys who are joining us to introduce themselves, and we will open up our presentation for your questions.
Okay, at this time, if you have any questions, we're asking that you jot them down on the index cards that you have, and we're going to present them to the attorneys so that they can answer them. Now, the format for us is generally we have a community partner attorney with us along with our own staff attorney, but that attorney got COVID, so he couldn't make it tonight. So we hope he's feeling better, and we miss him. Online we have attorney Slaven Illick with Illick Law. He's one of our community partners, And what's going to happen is questions are going to be added to the chat online, and Jim is going to answer the questions related to the Cook County Clerk's office, but our legal counsel online is going to answer your legal questions, okay? So if there are legal questions that need to be answered, they'll be presented to Jim. Jim will read them to our attorney online and then give you his answer. Is that okay? Yes. Okay. Okay. So they're going to tag team back and forth with the questions that are appearing online and here in person. Any questions before we get started with the question and answer? Also, you've been given a property fraud alert form that was talked about in our presentation. This service is free through the Cook County Clerk's office. If you want to fill the form out tonight, you can fill it out, turn it in to us, show us your ID so that we can verify that you are who you say you are, and we'll get you registered for the free property fraud alert service, okay? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Are there any satellite offices, or do you have to go downtown? Satellite?
Not for the recordings. No, we have vital records in our satellite offices, but in our recordings, no.
Anybody ready? Yeah.
Well, good evening, everybody. Once again, my name is Jim Gleffy. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff and Labor Counsel for the Cook County Clerk's Office, and I'll be assisting you with your questions tonight. As Robin Staggers has mentioned, I am one of the attorneys for the office. I cannot legally provide legal advice because technically my client is Cook County, but I can provide information to you, and we do have an attorney online who is Mr. Illick, who would be able to help answer some of the questions that are more specific in terms of your situations and give answers to specific situations. So I have gotten a couple of questions, and I will read them out for you. Okay. The first question is more informational in nature, so I think I could answer that. It is on the transfer on death form towards the bottom, and everyone should have received a copy of the transfer on death instrument form. If you haven't, we have them in the back with our staff. But the question is, do you waive your rights to homestead exemption now, or is this after death? So I'm hoping the clarification is, by filling out this form, are you relinquishing the opportunity for you to collect a homestead exemption on your home? The answer is no. When you complete this form, it doesn't change the home ownership of your property. So if you're completing a transfer on death instrument for your home, you are still the owner of that home until you pass away. And then your heirs or beneficiaries, as they're listed in the form, would have an opportunity to claim the property. But no, if you are completing a transfer on death instrument, it is not going to affect your ability to obtain the homeowner's exemption on your property. The person who asked that, did that effectively answer your question? Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. The next question I have. If I receive a property via a TOTI form from a senior, will the property taxes increase if the home is transferred from a senior to a non-senior? This would be the same situation as it would in any property transfer. So when I purchase my home, if I purchase it from a senior, there would be a senior exemption on the home when I purchased it. But ultimately, once I obtain the property and I'm not a senior, I'm not entitled to that exemption anymore. So, and property taxes are delayed, so let's just say I purchased the property this year in 2022. In 2022, you're technically paying 2021's property taxes. So the senior exemption would stay for the 2021 tax year. But then for 2022, taxes, which we would pay in 2023, I would no longer be entitled to a senior exemption, and I would lose that exemption. I might be entitled to the homeowner's exemption, but not the senior exemption. So whoever asked that question, I hope that answered that effectively. Yes. Okay. I'm getting another question. Okay. The question is, can a toady be challenged like a will or probate dispute? Can a toady transfer be overridden by wills? So that's two questions. Let's take the first part. A toady can be challenged in court just like a will, but one of the good things about the toady is that you're putting it out there before you pass away. So when you complete the toady form, what I would strongly suggest is tell the beneficiaries in the toady form about your plans. Tell them that there's a toady out there. It's a publicly recorded document, so it's out there anyway. But it's always good to tell your beneficiaries that they are your beneficiary in your toady form. A couple reasons for this. One, it lets everybody know what the plan is so that there's no mistake or there's no allegation that there's any wrongdoing. These forms do have to be notarized and witnessed by 2 witnesses, so that does take away a little bit of the ability to challenge it, but someone could, like in any legal situation, file a lawsuit in court. But also another good reason for telling your beneficiaries is they have to file an affidavit upon your passing to actually change the transfer of ownership. The form is called a notice of death and acceptance affidavit. And if they don't know that there's a transfer on death instrument on file, they might not know that they have to file that form. And if there's nothing filed after 2 years of your passing, even though your intention was to make sure that this didn't have to go to probate, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have to go to probate. The name of the form is the Notice of Death Affidavit and a Notice of Death Acceptance Affidavit. And I do believe we have a copy of this form on the Cook County Clerk's website. We do. So if you go to cookcountyclerk.il.gov, you can obtain a copy of that affidavit as well. So now the other question is, can a toady be overridden by a will? The answer is no. The toady is effective upon your death. A will is not effective until it's submitted for probate. So the transfer has already occurred presumably before the will is even probated. So the transfer on death instrument would stay beyond and would trump a will.
What's the cost for filing a toady?
That's a good question. And Commissioner Miller, it doesn't seem to be in the room at the time, but Commissioner Miller and several of the other Cook County commissioners passed a law at the beginning of the pandemic to reduce the price for recording a transfer on death instrument. If you're recording a deed or a mortgage, the fees can get pretty high. It's $98 per document. But for a toady, it's reduced to $50 per document. And that's to, especially with COVID, we wanted to make sure people had an opportunity to put their plans in place and make it more affordable. And so Clerk Yarbrough, then Recorder Moody, and the Cook County Board worked together to ensure that the price is affordable for everybody to file documents in our office. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, the next question I have here. You prepare a transfer on death on your home that still has a mortgage. You die before the mortgage is paid. When my child goes to the clerk's office to notify of my death, does the clerk's office put their name on the deed immediately, or can they just continue to pay my mortgage payment, or will they have to refinance in their own name? Mr. Illick, I'm going to call on you for the first question here for our group. Would you like to answer that question in the chat, and I'll answer the question, or repeat the answer in the mic after you have a chance to do it. So as Mr. Illick is tackling this question, I can take another question. And I'm guessing this pertains to the fact the transfer on death instrument requires witnesses to verify that the document is being signed by you. The question is, do you bring your own witnesses or can a stranger witness? Anybody can serve as a witness to a transfer on death instrument. It might make sense if it's somebody you know, so that if there's any dispute, we could go to that person or if there's they could go to the person and say, yes, I witnessed this happen. The person was of sound mind and this is what they intended to do. Caveat, I would not have one of your beneficiaries serve as your witness. That just opens the door for a challenge. So it could be a stranger, it could be your neighbor, it could be a friend. There's no requirements as it relates to who the witness has to be, other than I would strongly suggest not having one of the beneficiaries serve as a witness. Okay, and then the next question. Okay, is a transfer on death instrument sustained when one of the two owners is deceased, or could the surviving spouse revoke it? This is a good question, because sometimes when people file a transfer on death instrument, they do it as, you know, husband and wife own the property as tenants in the entirety, and they do a joint transfer on death instrument from each of them. What happens in that situation is the property would not transfer upon the death of one of the two homeowners. It would have to survive the last of the individuals that's filling out the transfer on death instrument. So example, I always find that examples are a better way of explaining. I own my home with my wife. We do a joint transfer on death instrument. Unfortunately, something happens to me. We hold the property together as in joint tenancy with the rights of survivorship. My wife would become the sole owner of that property. She would still have the ability to revoke the transfer on death instrument if she wanted to, or change the beneficiaries if she wanted to. She's the sole owner and she could do what she wants with the property. Okay? Okay, so we have a question that was asked, and I referred to our online attorney. The question, I'll re-ask it so everyone's aware of what it is. The question was, you prepare a transfer on death on your home that still has a mortgage. You die before the mortgage is paid. When my child goes to the clerk's office to notify of my death, does the clerk's office put their name on the deed immediately? And then second, can they just continue to pay my mortgage, or will they have to refinance in their own name? The answer is, if the house is paid off, you are on the title, but you need to notify the Cook County Treasurer to change mailing for real estate taxes, and then you need to continue to pay the taxes. That was the answer from Mr. Illick. I would also like to add, just for your information and for my experience, the clerk's office doesn't draft deeds. So there's a lot of misconception. It's like homeowners think that their homes transfer just like car loans. You know, your title. You pay your mortgage off. You don't have your title until they send you your title in the mail. That's not the case with your home. When you purchase your home, you obtain a deed. That deed gives you home ownership. You are the owner of the property. The mortgage is just a lien that the bank has on your property in the instance that you don't pay it. They could foreclose on that lien. But you are the homeowner of your home until someone takes it away, or you sell it, or any one of those situations. Now, what happens is the transfer on death instrument that's recorded in our office is effective. The person files the document that I referred to, the notice of death affidavit and acceptance. They record that with our office, and that will serve the same function as a deed for all intents and purposes. We are the record keeper for Cook County, and the records of the county will show that you as the person accepting the property through the transfer on death instrument. You are the owner of record for that property. There doesn't have to be another deed unless you wanted to change the home ownership status of the property. So you might inherit, or let's just say I inherit a property through a transfer on death instrument. I accept that property, but I want to add my wife to that property since it's now my property. I would have to complete a new deed. I'd go to an attorney and have them complete a quitclaim deed or some other deed that transfers it from me to both me and my wife. Does that answer your question, or did I go a little bit too far astray there? Okay. I'm assuming that with no follow-up that I've answered your question. So, I don't know if he addressed the issue with the, there's some more from Slavin. Okay. In terms of the second question about paying the mortgage or you have to refinance, he states that if it's not paid off, your child may need to open a state case to get the letters of office. This really depends on the lender. So, mortgage companies have their own internal rules, and it could be a little persnickety as it comes to things. Some people just continue to pay the mortgage, and at the end of the day, as long as the mortgage payments come in, the mortgage company is not going to object or say anything. Others may want to make sure that you're the actual owner of the property before they start accepting payments. I think it really depends on the situation. And I think that's what Attorney Illick is really getting at. You may have to open an estate just to get letters of office. It's a very limited form of probate. It's not like you have to go through probate to actually take ownership of the property. But this would just allow you to get your name okay with the mortgage company. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to answer some of the questions that were asked online, just so everyone has the benefit of hearing what the questions were and the answers, because a lot of times they overlap with our personal situations. So, let's see. A lot of the questions are not really related to the presentation. One question said, my parents are deceased. I found among them, their papers, a letter from their mortgage property stating that their home has permanent tax abatement. I'm going to follow up. However, they have been paid and they've been billed for the homeowner's taxes. What can I do? And the answer, unfortunately, seemed to have been, we need to see the actual document before we could answer that question.
So what was the question?
The question was, what I'm interpreting from this is that the individual's parents deceased, and they found among the parents' papers a letter from a mortgage, from their mortgage company stating that their home has a permanent tax abatement, and they want to know what they can do about it. But the attorney said he has to see the document before he could answer that question, so apologize about that. There's a question, what is the estimated cost for an attorney? Obviously, every attorney has their own costs associated with their services, and it depends on the types of services as well. I don't know if there'll be any further answer to that question. We have a few more questions here trickling in from the in-person crowd. Does a trust offer any disadvantages or advantages over the available forms discussed here? Attorney Illick, I'll leave that to you to answer. I have some information I could provide, but I do want to give you an opportunity to answer that question. And while I wait for your answer, I will go to the next question. The next question, is it a problem to name, say, 5 beneficiaries? House is paid and you have 5 children. In theory, no. I mean, it depends on your children and their relationship with one another. The transfer on death instrument, you know, the beneficiaries, you leave it at 5 beneficiaries, they would each get the percentage in the amount that you leave to them. You could leave it in 5 equal parts, and presumably if they're all getting along and don't have any disputes with one another, they'll take their share and or communicate and collaborate with each other and make a decision on what to do with the property. But legally, there's no issue with 5 beneficiaries. It's just, practically speaking, how is that going to work when the time comes for them to deal with the property? Does that answer that question? Okay. Next question. Can you explain what probate is and when probate should happen? That's a very good question. This is, you know, a lot of folks aren't familiar with the probate process. They've never had to go through probate, and it's really a legal process that's used to handle the estate of someone who has passed away. So probate is a type of legal proceeding handled in court to deal with the estate of a deceased person. There's 2 different types of probate cases. There's probate cases that, you know, you're probating a will that was left behind by the person that passed away. And there's a type of probate case if there was no will at all. They call that passing away intestate, without a will. And so a will allows you to make an estate plan however you want to deem fit. You can leave whatever property you have to whoever you want in whatever way you want. It's basically your own estate plan. Now, if you want to change that, you have to go and, you know, do another will, go to the attorney, tell them what changes you want to make. That's part of the issue with the will. And then if, obviously, there could be, like Mr. James Brown, if people aren't happy with that result, they could file a contest and say that there's some sort of issue with the will. Intestate probate cases actually proceed with an estate plan that was created by the General Assembly. If you don't come up with an estate plan for yourself through a will, the government has created one for you. And it tells in very detailed specificity who is to be obtaining the property in certain situations based on who your relatives are, who your descendants are. So probate cases are in circuit court. They can get very costly and they can take a lot of time. Just as an example, I had an uncle who was a permanent resident of the Washington, D.C. He lived in Washington, D.C. His home was in Washington, D.C. But he owned a property in Illinois, actually 2 properties in Illinois, and some in some other states. His probate case was over 3 years long. And if your goal is to swiftly dispose of assets, sometimes probate is not the best manner of doing it. With the transfer on death instrument, if it's on file, all you have to do to make it effective is go to the clerk's office and file the notice of death and acceptance affidavit with their office, and that would complete the transfer of the property. So that just describes probate. I kind of went into a little bit more about the probate process. Did that answer the question about probate? Do you have a little bit better flavor about what probate is before I go to the next question? Any questions on that? Feel free to raise your hand, shout at me. I want to make sure that I'm actually answering the questions that you have. Okay. And the second question, I think, was similar to one that was asked of the attorney online is, can you discuss the advantages of a trust? And the answer he just provided was, the biggest advantage is privacy. So with a trust, the owner of the property is technically the trust, not you. And you could be the beneficiary of the trust, however, but let's just use an example. I'm a public official. I don't want people knowing where I live. I can have my property placed in a land trust. And so if I'm searching the public records, if I look up who owns my home, it's going to say land trust number 1234, done by trust agreement XYZ from Chicago Title and Trust Company. The only thing that people are going to see on the public record is that the trust owns the property. Now, within the trust documents which you have, it's going to tell you about who the beneficiaries are for the trust, who the trustee is, all of that. And so trust privacy is one of the biggest advantages of trusts. There's different types of trusts. I mentioned land trusts. There's also living trusts and different types of trusts that can be used in different life situations. If you have a lot of different assets, you can put all those assets in a single trust and have them disposed of however you deem fit. One of the disadvantages to that is that trust can get very complicated, and it's much easier to make a mistake in a trust document than it would be a transfer and death instrument. Also, the cost associated because of that complexity, you're going to be paying an attorney a lot more money to draft up those documents than you would just simply a transfer and death instrument. And just online, there's another, the only other comment from Attorney Illick was that the trust may have other advantages as well, but it depends on what your individual goals are. A TODI is a public document, like I mentioned. Everyone's going to see what your plan is when you file a TODI. If that's not an issue for you, then that's fine. If it is an issue, then maybe you want to talk to your estate planning attorney and ask if a trust is the right document for you. Okay. Another question I have here. If there was a second name listed on a transfer on death, once I accept the property as the first name, can I remove the second name originally listed? I think I need some clarification on what the question. Are you asking if there was two beneficiaries and you claim it first, can you remove the second? Is that the question? Or okay. I don't think so. Mr. Illick, please verify what I'm saying is correct, but I don't think that a beneficiary, it's not like a race to the courthouse where the first beneficiary that files the affidavit gets a chance to, basically kick out all the other beneficiaries. All the beneficiaries have the same rights as all the other beneficiaries, so they would have a similar 2 years to claim the property. The answer is it would be nice, but no. So no, you couldn't just remove the other beneficiaries listed, unfortunately. Okay. So you're talking about a situation where the other beneficiary may have passed away, or you?
No, the person put it so that if something happened to them, they wanted the property to go to me, and then in the case of my demise, then they listed for another person.
Yes, they can do that. In the transfer on death instrument, it actually calls for contingency beneficiaries in the event that you predecease the actual person who completed the TODI. Yeah, those would be two different things. So this is the first thing that I think the attorney in the back was talking about was a contingency beneficiary that would be listed by the homeowner. So I want to leave my property to my nephew, but if he predeceases me, I'll leave it to my niece. That's something that me as a homeowner will do, and I complete the form. What you're talking about is you are the beneficiary, you accept the property through filing of the affidavit. You can complete a new TODI, right, and you would be the one in the situation where you could list who you want your beneficiaries to be. Right. in the instance that you unfortunately pass away. Hopefully not for a long time after you obtain that property. We want you to have many years of enjoying it, but you can do that from the moment that you are the record owner of the property. Okay. Let's see if there's any additional questions from the online crowd. Okay. There was a question, how do you file as next of kin to a judge to receive legal authority to access legal documents such as insurance, deeds, tax payment info, etc.? Which court? Is attorney needed, etc.? The answer to that was you would need to open up an estate in the probate court in the county in which the decedent died. So the answer, the short answer appears to be you have to open up a probate estate. Okay, this is a good question. What happens if the beneficiary of my transfer on death instrument decides that they don't want the property? Will the home have to go to probate? The answer is the beneficiaries do have the right to reject the ownership of the property within a certain amount of time of the owner's death. Also, if you don't do anything, the statute of limitations is 2 years. So if you don't file your affidavit within 2 years, the same thing would happen. It would go to the homeowner's estate, and unfortunately, you would have to go to probate to deal with the property at that point. Okay, next question from online. When do you get a deed for your property? It's a good question, and I think I talked about this a little bit earlier. The question is, the answer is, in general, an owner of the property might already have their deed as a part of their closing documents. Those papers that you get on the day you get the keys to the home, those are your closing documents, has copies of your mortgage, your survey, your deed. Hopefully you kept all those documents and you have them in a safe place to refer to, because chances are your deed is in that packet. If you don't have a copy of it, you lose it, your house flooded and all the documents got ruined. Copies of all those documents are in our office at the Cook County Clerk's office. You could get them for as little as $6 if you just want to go online and purchase a copy. If you need a certified copy for any reason, the price can go up to about $55. But certified copies are simply copies that people use if they need it for like a court purpose or for some official record. You're getting, you need the document to provide to, a lending agency or something like that. But at the end of the day, we have the documents in our office. So if you don't know where your deed is, you don't know, you want to look at a copy of your mortgage or just look at your chain of title, feel free to look at the Cook County Clerk's website. You could search your property and see the entire property history up to 1985. That's what we have electronic records for, 1985 to present. There's actually a little handout that we have in the back. Robin Staggers has an example of it if you're interested. For documents going before 1985, we have the documents either in our basement at the clerk's office on microfilm or in document books located at the warehouse where you can put in a request and we can obtain copies of the original document for you. So the good news is, and the long and short of it is, if you don't have a copy of those documents, let us know. We're happy to help you in getting the documents you need. Okay. Okay. The question is another good question from online. What happens in the case of a reverse mortgage? How can a transfer on death be used, and does the bank own the home? So, as I kind of referred to earlier, the bank doesn't own the property when you put on a reverse mortgage and you pass away. They have a lien on the property. So let's just say you took a reverse mortgage out and you got $100,000 of your equity as a loan to live off of, and you pass away. And you fill out a TODI, your son or your daughter is your sole beneficiary through the TODI. The son or daughter would be the owner of the property, with the caveat, just like if it was a regular mortgage on the property, that reverse mortgage would need to be paid off. If it doesn't get paid off, then the mortgage company can foreclose on the lien, just like it would if it was a regular mortgage. So the payments can be made by the son or the daughter, whoever the beneficiary is. You could sell the home, pay off the mortgage and keep the proceeds. There's a lot of different options. It depends on what your interest is. Do you want to live in the home? But technically you are the owner until you're no longer the owner. Either you sell the property or the mortgage company takes possession because the mortgage is not being paid. There doesn't seem to be any other questions online. Do we have any other questions from our in-person group? Yes, there is. Thank you, sir. Can you explain last will and testament? And can or should a last will and testament be combined with a TODI? The short answer is it depends on your situation and what's going to work best for you. I could tell you just informationally speaking, and I'll give Slavin an opportunity to answer that as well. But a last will and testament, it's a will. So it's a document prepared by an attorney that basically sets out your estate plan for when you pass away. You want to leave your home to, X person. You want to leave your, your investments to another person. It basically, all your assets get put into your estate, and it basically says, this is who I want to get certain aspects of my estate. That's what a will does. So if you have a lot of assets beyond real estate, it might be worth your while to consider a will, because you don't want to have to go to probate in an intestate situation for those assets that are not covered by a transfer on death instrument. A transfer on death instrument is limited to real estate. For a long time, it was residential real estate, but just this past year in January, commercial real estate is also included in the transfer on death instrument statute. So if you have a rental property that you own, you can also pass that along through a transfer on death instrument as well. But the long and the short of it is, it's going to depend on your situation and what works best for you. If you're unsure, it's best to talk to an estate planning attorney to kind of get some feedback as to what best to do. Let's see. Yes, that is done through the Secretary of State's office. The document is called a Secretary of State Beneficiary Affidavit. It's done through the Department of Vehicle Services by the Secretary of State. So if you want to leave your car to a beneficiary, that is the form that you would complete and return to the Secretary of State's office in Springfield. The address is listed on the form. You could find it on their website at ilsos.gov, which is the Secretary of State's website, in their publications section. Okay.
Is that all the questions?
I'm checking to see if there's any additional ones that...
So that's good, free information, right? So the Cook County Clerk's Office, we started this path back in 2012 when Cook County Clerk Karen A. Yarbrough was the recorder of deeds at that time. And I don't know if you all know that the two offices, the Recorder of Deeds office and the Cook County Clerk's office, merged in 2021. So everything that was under the Recorder's office is under the Cook County Clerk's office. Did you know that? Yes, so all of our services are offered through her office, the Cook County Clerk's office. We handle suburban elections, vital records where you get your birth certificate, your death certificate, your marriage licenses. We have our tax redemptions office or tax services office. We have veteran services. How many in here are veteran? Are you now? You can sign up for our free Veterans Discount Card, Military and Veterans Discount Card. And if you don't have it, do you have it? You can sign up for it today. You can fill the form out at our table. We'll take your picture and we will send you your Veterans Discount Card. And we partner with over 150 vendors throughout Cook County. How good is that? And you can get free White Sox tickets. Don't tell me you're a Cubs fan.
We're in the South Side here, Robin.
It doesn't matter. So you can get free White Sox tickets to any game by showing your ID at White Sox Park, and that's only for you. I'm sorry, it doesn't extend to your family. So we have veteran services, and also you can register your DD 214 in our office free of charge. It expedites you or your family getting access to your benefits at the time of your death. Instead of going to the VA, which sometimes takes some time, you can come and get that document through our office, and we keep it recorded until it's needed. We also have a property after death, which we're presenting tonight. Property fraud, you can sign up for that tonight, fill out the form, sign it, bring it to our table. We'll verify that you are not a fraudster, so you have to show us a picture ID, and we'll take the form back to our office and get you registered for free property fraud alert service, which helps you monitor your property and protect it from theft. What else we have back there? We have our elections office. Suburban elections, we are hiring for election day. So you can earn $200 or you can earn $365 for the day, depending on what position you sign up for. So we have a elections office representatives in the back, and you can see them with regard to that. And if you're not registered voters, we can register you to vote tonight. So how many are registered voters? Yes. Yes. So we have a lot of free services in our office, and Clerk Yarbrough is very passionate about what we do in the community. That's why we go all across Cook County to present these programs to make them available to you. So people perish for the lack of what? Knowledge. So we're trying to increase your knowledge and educate you on options that you would have and that we offer through our office. So thank you so much for coming out. If there are no more questions.
Robin, I think there's one other question that came up online that I think is a good question to answer.
Sure.
So the question that was asked, if I need to make a change to my toady in the future, do I just fill out a new form? For instance, if I fill it out now and name my mom as a beneficiary, but live for another few years, hopefully many years, and my daughter becomes of age, do I just fill out a new form? One of the suggested answers by Attorney Illick was that he would just do a revocation of toady. There's a form to do that. But another way is to complete a new toady. You can do that and file that toady, and that would supersede any previous document that you filed. So either you could revoke your toady by the specific revocation form, or just file a new toady with the new beneficiary that you want to list.
Okay. One more thing. If you have an organization and you want to put on one of these presentations in the future, we will bring this presentation to you. You will be the host. We ask that you partner with your local electeds or another organization so that we can maximize the attendance, because we request that at least 50 people be present, and we'll bring all this information out to you free of charge. Now, I am so sorry, Ms. Pachola in the back is from Legal Aid. Legal Aid offers free legal services in the community, and if she'd like, she can come up and share that information with you right now. And I want to thank our attorneys that were online, Kane Trin and Attorney Illick. Attorney Illick is a jewel because he pitched in at the last minute because our other attorney was ill. So I want to give him a round of applause for just being available. Thank you, Attorney Illick. Ms. Pachola.
Thank you. My name is Melissa Pachola. I'm the Director of Pro Bono and Community Services at Legal Aid Chicago. I am an attorney, and we provide free legal services throughout Cook County. We have no income limits as long as you're over 60 and living in Cook County. And I am happy to answer any questions you have. We do prepare transfer on death instruments. We also prepare power of attorney documents. And we also provide a variety of other free legal services, everything from eviction defense to foreclosure defense to everything else you can pretty much think of. So please come see me in the back if you would like more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so my phone number is 312-603-3974, and I am Special Assistant to Cook County Clerk Karen A. Yarbrough, who allows us to come out and put on these forums. If you need information about how to have these forms brought to your community, please, please, please give me a call, or you can get my card at the back table. Thank you, Karen Yarbrough, for allowing us to be here. Thank you for coming out and taking time out of your time to be with us. You have a blessed evening.